So, thanks Robert. We've just finished the WEA Adult Learners Week lecture, and you did a fantastic lecture to us about adult learning from the 1970s through to now, really.
Yeah.
It was the second part. This is the second part of a lecture, which was which you did earlier in the year, which was sort of the bit before.
Yeah.
Now the last slide you did, the last slide, right at the last point, there was a comment on about radical pessimism and radical hope.
Yeah.
And so we've just got an opportunity to have just a quick chat about what were you sort of suggesting about that, because you know some of that really resonates with adult educators.
It does. It's I think it's an important component of any philosophy. Which what I mean by this is, I think many radicals historically have, going back to Marx and a lot of others, have been. Not Marx. Marx was radical hope. He was looking for change. He believed that change was possible. In fact, he believed that change was probable, if not. And I think many of the great thinkers who have contributed have had this sort of radical hope. They want to critique the structures of society. They want to engage with a critique of societies and challenging common ways of thinking and acting and doing, and looking, but they don't do it for the sake of criticism. They don't do it for the sake of ego satisfaction, of being smarter than the local people, the current thing. They look at it with a sense of hope and a sense that it's possible to make achievements and do things better. And that's what I understand the difference is, that radical pessimism is one which tends to be rather cynical, or at least despairing. And it's an important feature of many societies that there is a radical pessimist view. But the radical hope is that of an educator. As you say, it's really part of adult education, is working with people to recognise that they're part of a wider group and they can bring about change.
So the radical pessimism is something that really maintains the status quo, and it is part of not change. And the radical hope is the ability to see things that are different, to move things along, which and see things improve and develop. Which again, as we were talking about, is that kind of blurring between development, community development, amateurs. Not necessarily activists, but organisers, which is a key part of that community learning aspect of the adult community education sphere. Is that a threat at the moment, or has it always been a threat, or is it healthy?
It's what a threat is
is kind of that kind of sense of I guess what's always driven change and maintain adult and community education in New Zealand, really.
Yeah.
Is that still alive?
Well, I'm not sure if it's still alive. I think it rises and it swells up and down historically. I think that in the 1970s you can see an atmosphere of radical hope. I mean, there were all kinds of people who were looking for change and challenging things, but not in a negative sort of way, but looking. And sometimes it can be compromising, of course, and that's a danger, because that also can maintain a status quo and existing power relations. But if you see yourself as challenging through education and action and development, if you see yourself as looking to make things better, to move forward, then and you think it's possible, because I mean a number of academics are classic radical pessimists. They sit there and criticise what's going on, and they don't do anything about it because they're disillusioned with everything. And I think that's a very sad position. I think it's a position which some philosophers take, but I think it's a very negative. Nietzsche was accused of being a nihilist, and he would be a radical pessimist. I'm not sure. He's had some messages of positive messages as well. But so it's that difference. And I think in the 70s you had a more sense of the world's changing and we've got our cotton on and do something about it. And in Maori organisations at the time were looking to change. And I think the Maori contributions are complex, but in the 70s, both Pākehā and Maori in New Zealand seem to have been they seem to embody a lot of radical optimism. The 80s, I'm not sure about. There were certainly people working optimistically to bring about radical change, but I think they got. I don't think we made much progress in the 80s. Sadly, in the 90s, at the time when the government was sidelining and marginalising the whole field of adult community education and community development and so on, at that time there were a number of people engaged very powerfully in trying to deal with this and address this and develop new policies and new ways of working. And I think the same thing in the 2000s. I think under Labour there was a move by a number of people to make things better and to develop, to engage with the citizens, everybody, in trying to bring about change, democratic, social change, but bring it about democratically. It's a huge task, actually, that radical optimists undertake. I mean, I don't think we'll ever achieve nirvana on Earth. I think but we've got to. It gives me meaning, and I think it gives other people meaning if they can cotton on to an educational process that engages people in new ways of looking at things.
It's that critical literacy, which is so
absolutely.
fundamental.
Absolutely.
And I guess the radical hopefulness about looking back through history, or the hopefulness, is that there has always been that radical optimism, and which starts from the radical hope that things can be different.
Absolutely.
And somehow that comes from somewhere inside some of us.
Yeah. Well, I think you and I actually, our philosophies are sort of are quite similar. Our understandings of the world are probably quite similar.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. But you find this with many educators, adult educators, and that they have different views, and that's good. But they share a deep search for a process which engages people and promotes social justice.
That's right. And a common purpose that things can and should be better.
That's right.
Great. Well, thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Matt.